Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. I'm your host, Maria Angelova, creator of the Angelova Method, an integrative approach to mind and body connection. The Angelova Method redefines your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind. Hi, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. And today's special treat for you is Amy Yip, who is a somatic life transformation and mental fitness coach, as well as speaker and author. Welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, Amy has a fascinating story, guys, and I can't wait to dive into that so that you get an experience of who Amy is, her amazing energy, and the amazing transformation that she has been through. I think there is so much wisdom to be shared. So, Amy, let's get to know who is Amy behind the titles. Who is Amy? Give us a little bit of a backstory behind each one of three words that describe you.
3 words. I would say curious. I used to, when I was growing up, I would be so curious about everything. And I got my legs stuck in everything, like the balcony bars, because I was curious if my leg would fit through it. I got my legs stuck in chairs, like I did all this stuff because I had this big curiosity. And the other word that I would say is adventurous. And I think they come hand in hand. I've traveled to almost 80 countries in the world. I love trekking, going up mountains, trying new things. So curiosity, adventurous, and the other word is love. I have a lot of love in me for the people around me, for the world. I really do believe that all human beings are kind at their core, and it's how do you love them to bring that out of them?
Yeah. I love that. That's almost making me emotional, Amy, because I'm like you. I feel like we're all humans and we're all going through a different experience. And as an empath and as somebody who is humanitarian, it's really hard for me to see what's happening around us. And I've heard it from so many people who say, well, somebody hates me. That's just like so heavy and so heartbreaking, because I don't think anybody is a malicious person. I think we all have different experiences that sometimes don't bring out the best in us. And I do, I know this probably sounds cheesy or whatever you want to label it, but I do think if we can live from a place of love and from a place of embracing each other, regardless of what our differences, and actually appreciate those differences, we can be in such a grander place than where we are today.
I 100% agree. Nobody was born saying, I want to be a horrible person. I want to hate people. And those are just things that we learn along our life journey. And a big part of it is beneath a lot of that is fear.
Yeah.
It is hurt. It really isn't this like, I hate people, but I'm afraid of them, or I'm afraid of what that might mean, or, I'm hurt because somebody else has hurt me. And that's what's beneath everything.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it goes so much deeper than what's on the surface. And with a lot of things that are happening in the world, a client brought that up. We're kind of going to a totally different direction, but I do think it applies to the person, to each and one of us as a person, because we all have things that we have gone through, experiences that cause us to fear one thing or another, or to feel insecure in one scenario or another, no matter who we are. And to do the self-work, to understand why we feel a certain way and why we feel that fear that we're going through is so important, so that each one of us can elevate to the best person that we are.
100%. And I think a big piece of it is we tend to blame others instead of owning the fact of our emotions. And I think it comes down to 2 things. One is we're so out of touch with our emotions, right? So many of us live in our heads. And there's this really great Albert Einstein quote that the rational mind, or no, the intuitive mind is the master, the rational mind is the servant, but we've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. This is Albert Einstein, brilliant man, and I think we too often live in here. And so we're so out of touch with our emotions and feelings. And so we don't even realize we're afraid or there's hurt. And I think the other thing is, and I've experienced this, it's easier to blame other people than ourselves or to take ownership, because then that could signal something might be wrong with me. And I don't want to do that because that's scary. So I'm just going to say it's somebody else's fault.
It's funny because I was going to bring the exact same point. I call it taking the mirror and turning it and looking in the mirror and owning whatever this is that is we're going through. That can be, speaking from personal experience, can be quite the experience, right? And going, oh, and having that a moment. And then you feel a bunch of emotions that come up. And I say that self-forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do, because we realize that our life is in a point of where it is because of the choices, whether they're very key conscious or subconscious choices that we're making every single day throughout the day that result into where we are in life. And I'm 100% with you. Personal responsibility is so key for us stepping into our own personal power.
Yes, 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, goosebumps.
What a
I
way to kick
love
this
it.
off.
I love it, Amy. So let's talk about this. I mean, there is like, I hope you, Rebels, like, do you hope, I know we frequently talk about kind of like same topics, and it's so easier to brush them off and kind of miss the depth of what we're talking about, because these like few minutes that we just had are profound. There is so much that goes into them, and it's such a great practice to really pause and absorb, because we've also become a society that just like skims through information and doesn't think through because there is an overload of information. So just to really pause and think about, take personal responsibility for where you're in life and where your life is. Amy, let's talk a little bit about your story. You have a fascinating story and a fascinating journey. I do have to say, in some way, our paths are similar. But what took you, I mean, you had a successful corporate career as well, and you stepped into entrepreneurship. What was the journey like for you? And where was the point where you were like, oh, personal responsibility kind of like clicked?
Yeah. So I think in terms of the career piece, when I started my job at Google, I had always said, I want to stay here for 5 years and that's it. But I want to go see the world. I want to travel. I have these dreams. I want to go volunteer, give back. I love working with women. So I'm like, I'm going to go and teach women business skills in Africa. Like, there's all these things I want to do. I just didn't realize that as a woman in her mid-30s, you have a lot of decisions you have to make.
Mm.
So during my time at Google, I was in my mid-30s. My career was going very, very well. And everyone was like, why would you leave this company? Right? It's all the shoulds. You should just stay here. You should do this, especially my parents. My parents are immigrants that came to America with $1,700 in their pockets. So they think that I'm just bananas for wanting to leave this prestigious company. And then, during that journey, I got a husband. Husbands change plans. And I think the biggest should of all that was really tough for me was everyone telling me, you should settle down and have babies because you're getting old.
Mm.
And that was a very, very tough thing for me. And my husband and I, we both knew that we wanted to have kids, but we weren't ready. So we decided that we were going to freeze our embryos. A year later, we find out there was a temperature control issue in the tank where our embryos were stored. And they basically said, we can't tell you the viability of them anymore. We don't know if they're good, And that was the pivotal decision and the rock bottom point for me. And I think that a lot of these points for us that feel like rock bottom are actually a gift because they change the trajectory of our life. And so that was my rock bottom point. And that was when I started on my self-help journey of trying to figure out, like, what is it that I really want? Do I settle down and do I listen to everyone, or do I pursue the thing that I've always dreamt of? And it was hard because on the outside, everything looks great, right? Why should I be complaining? I've got this wonderful husband, this wonderful job, friends and family. So I almost felt a bit of guilt for wanting something else, right? Like, But I decided to go on this self-help journey. As the child of very traditional Chinese immigrants, I was taught you don't air your dirty laundry. So I started by reading books. And I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. And again, it goes back to that Albert Einstein quote, rational brain, right? Like, I'm like, I could figure it out. I'm smart enough. So I read books. The books did not help me figure out my emotions and what was going on. I understood them, but I couldn't figure out what is it that I want to do next in my life. And so, have you ever heard of ayahuasca?
Explain, please, for
Okay,
those who
it's
have not
okay.
heard.
So
Yes.
it is a medicinal plant. In Peru, they have entire ceremonies and shamans. It's supposed to give you clarity and cleansing of your soul, right? Whatever it is that you need, Mother Ayahuasca will give you. So my friend had told me, oh, there's this thing called ayahuasca. It's supposed to give you clarity. And I was like, that's what I need. I need clarity. So I took a 5-day trip to Peru and I did a 5-day ayahuasca ceremony down there. I got so much clarity on life, the power of vulnerability. Asking for help is not a weakness, it's a strength. I learned all this stuff, but I came home still not clear. Do I have babies or do I travel the world and pursue my dream? And it wasn't until I hired a coach. So a coworker told me about coaching. And
Mhm.
honestly, I was skeptical because I was taught rational brain, right? Like you're supposed to figure it out. How could somebody else help you?
Yep.
But I was pretty desperate. So I hired a coach and it was the best thing for me. My coach peeled back the layers of my onion, all those shoulds, to really get to my core and helped me realize like what is happening and become more aware. And she helped me to figure out what I'm in control of, which is not very much. I'm not in control. Even if I stay, I'm not in control if I can have kids or not. Like, just look at what happened to my embryos. But I am in control if I choose to pursue my dream. And so I made that decision. I'm going to go pursue my dreams. And the other decision is I want to be a coach. I want to help others get unstuck, and not live in this place of these shoulds. And so I went back, got my coaching certification. And then in January of 2020, my husband and I, we sold everything, took a one-way flight to Ghana. We volunteered there at a breast cancer nonprofit. And then there was that little thing that called COVID that came along. We ended up stuck there for 7 months, but it was the best thing ever. It's where I really built my business. And once borders reopened, we started living and working nomadically. And at the age of 40, I got pregnant naturally while overseas, right? And I always think things happen for a reason. The thing that held me back from pursuing this was this fear of not becoming a mom. The thing that brought me back to the US was becoming a mom at 40. So now I have this beautiful little baby boy. He's 2 now. He's not really a baby, but he's this adorable
Is your
little
baby forever.
he's my baby forever. Yeah. So, and that was my trajectory. And I think that pivotal point of the tank losing power, losing the temperature control, started me on my journey of understanding and becoming aware of myself, being able to look at the mirror and doing that self work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. I can relate to a lot of your story because I come from Eastern Europe in a culture that's very much you should. What are people going to think and so forth. I come from a family of academia. So of course you have to get a good job, however that is defined, right? And when I quit my corporate job, what I jumped into was not a traditional good job, right? It was like, really? And I do think as women, like you said, we have the biological clock, right? It's on top of everything else. You have those tough choices of, and you know what? I also think it's important to know that not every woman wants to be a mother. Not every woman wants to be married. And there is still that societal expectations. Your clock is ticking. You should have kids. You should get married. Well, maybe you don't want to get married. I said, that's totally okay. You should do whatever you want to and whatever is right for you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you weird. It's you're staying true to yourself. Last night in the mindset call that we had, my group mindset call, we talked exactly about the topic of the call was I pledge allegiance to.
Mhm.
People were like, who do I pledge allegiance to? I was like, who do you think you pledge allegiance to? And they were like, me. I was like, yes, you are the first one you pledge allegiance to. Because if you're out of alignment with yourself, you might be very successful in the eyes of the world, right? You have the title, the great husband and all that, but if inside is empty, are you really happy? And is that how you want to live your life? Not to say that everybody should quit corporate, right? If corporate is your jam, rock it.
Yes.
If entrepreneurship is your jam, rock it. If being a nomad is your jam, do whatever you have to do. But being honest and staying true to who you are, I think that's so important, Amy. And I think your story is so powerful because I mean you had to make significant choices. Motherhood is a big deal.
It is a very, very big deal. And as a small business owner, it's even more challenging. I work with a lot of women who come to me because they had children and they felt like because of societal expectations, they needed to quit their jobs or put their careers on hold to become like the mother and take care of their children, right? And they come to me and they're like, 10 years have gone by and I don't know what I've done with my life. I've just been at home and it wasn't a choice of mine. It was just something that I felt like I should do. And so when I became a mom, or right before I gave birth, I told my husband, I'm not going to be one of those women. We're going to have our kiddo at 3 months. We're going to put him into daycare and then I'm going to mosey on and do my thing again. That's what I told him. Then my child was born. And let me tell you, I fell in love with this little human being so much. And I turned to my husband and I'm like, I can't put him into daycare at 3 months. I love him too much. Like, I can't imagine him not being home at such a young age. And what are we going to do? And the amazing thing is, I have such a supportive husband. And so we talked it through and we made a decision together for what was right for me. And for me, it was, I'm going to cut back on my hours. I'm going to go part-time and we're going to hire an at-home nanny on the days that I'm going to work. And that way he's still at home with me. I can still spend more time with him, but I'm also not giving up on the thing that's really meaningful to me. Right. And so I loved what you said about the shoulds. There is no right way and everyone has to make that choice. And sometimes you don't know what that choice is going to be until you're actually in the moment. I didn't know I would fall in love with this little baby that much. I knew I would love him, but not that much. So I had to make that choice in that moment.
Yeah. Amy, once again, 100% agree with you. So I used to live in New York before I got married to my husband, and he was in Atlanta. And we had the conversation of who is moving where. And one of his incentives to move back to Georgia was like, cost of living is so much cheaper. So once we have a kid, you don't have to work. Amy, I got so mad at him and I was like, are you kidding me? I have been working my ass to build my career. I'm not going to be a stay-at-home mom. Well, until I had my daughter. And it was literally the Friday before I had my 12 weeks leave over. I was supposed to get back to the office on Monday. And I looked at my daughter at 12 weeks and I was like, I can't go back to the office. And I told my husband, who then lost his mind, he was like, but you said you're never going to quit. And I said, well, I had a change of heart. To your point, you don't know how you're going to feel until you're in that situation, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to reevaluate my choices and I resigned. I was not planning on it. I fully intended to go back to the office, but that's what happened. And it was okay. Was it the right thing for somebody else? I don't know. Was it the right thing for me? 100%.
Yeah. And I 100%, like the other thing, I was recently reading this post from a person, a new mom who felt bad because she was like, I'm not in love with my baby yet. And that's okay too. Like, we don't need, there's this perception that right away you have to fall in love with your child and you have to love motherhood, and motherhood is a beautiful thing. But the truth is, it's hard. It's not easy. There are big emotions, and all of that is okay. It's not like the commercials where it's like this mother holding this wonderful baby and we're so in love, right? Like, everyone has their own experiences of motherhood, of life, of career, and we all have to make that decision for ourselves, not based on the shoulds of what everybody else is saying to us.
And Amy, I really appreciate you bringing that up because a lot of mothers are dealing with the guilt. And I think even the societal expectations is you go back to work or you're a bad mom because you went back to work. You don't go back to work. Now you're a bad mom because you didn't go back to work. So you're never going to make everybody happy. So you might as well choose to make yourself happy. And then the other thing is, like you said, motherhood is a lot because you're hormonal, you're recovering yourself. And then you have this little thing that you're supposed to know what to do with. And you're like, I really don't know, it's crying. Why is it crying? And then you have the pressure of, you should love this thing. You should love motherhood. I have a friend, she has 6 kids. She loved being pregnant. She was like, oh my gosh, I love being pregnant. I'm sorry, I did not love being pregnant. I was bloated and swollen and everything hurt and I was wobbling around. I did not love it. Did I want to have a kid? Absolutely. Do I love and adore my daughter? Absolutely. Was pregnancy my most favorite thing? No, I love the connection that we had, but outside of that, no. And then the early years when they just poop, pee, and eat, that is a challenging time, and they're crying and you don't know why they're crying. And I think when we say, well, oh, my kid is always so fun, we set that expectation for other women who then feel like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me because I don't feel that way. I had a mom come to me and she said, I feel like the most horrible mom. I said, why? She said, because I want to hide in the closet and eat bonbons and not deal with my kids. I was like, do you know how many women feel that way? She goes, really? I was like, yes. If there's one mom who has not felt that way, I don't know. But I think we have to talk about these things and share and be open and real about them because, yes, your body changing to pregnancy is a thing. Your body recovering from pregnancy is a thing. You being a first-time mom is a thing. You managing your life differently and being into a new role is a thing. It's okay to acknowledge these things. And it's okay to say, you know what, I'm having a hard time to that. And Amy, I love that you said is that you hired a coach because I think there's that perception of, oh, something is really wrong with me, so I'm going to hire a therapist or a coach. No, you're just like, and like you said, seeking help is not a bad thing. That's something I personally had to work through because I was taught you deal with your own stuff and you don't share and put your bullshit out there. And it doesn't work that way.
It's exactly what you said earlier about the mirror. Sometimes we don't see what we don't see. Somebody else has to hold that mirror up to you, right?
Right.
And that's where the coach and the therapist comes in. And I've had both throughout my life. It just depends on the phases of my life and what I'm going through. And the funny thing, maybe not so funny, but it's postpartum, I was having a hard time. So I say like, oh, I fell in love with him. It didn't happen immediately, right? Like the first month or so was really, really hard. I had an emergency C-section and I was having all kinds of hormonal things. I was depressed. I was all this stuff. And it was my mom who said to me, Amy, you need to get help. And my mom, Chinese immigrant woman who used to be against my sister studying psychology because she said, no, that's inappropriate, right? Like we don't go into that field. And now she's the one who's telling me, Amy, you need help, and I was like, oh, what do you mean? And there's this moment of like, do you think something's wrong with me? Or you like, right? And then she said, no, this is like me telling you in the most loving way. You've not been happy. I could tell you're upset. Like you need somebody who could talk you through it, professional. And so she's the one who encouraged me to see a therapist and see someone who could help me with my postpartum anxiety and stress and all that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that's part of the normal to your new lifestyle, that's a big deal, you guys. That is something that, again, I mean, that's a whole different topic we can get into because I deal with the physical aspect of the body not being taken care of pre-pregnancy, but that's like a whole different episode. But there is the whole aspect of the mental. It's a lot mentally, and prioritizing yourself in that moment when you have to take care of a kid. And to be honest with you, I don't know what you think, but even after, it's like do everything for everybody else, and then if there is time, maybe invest some what's left over for yourself. And as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, can't serve from an empty cup.
Yeah, 100%. Like it reminds me of what my husband said to me yesterday. I have a TEDx talk coming up in a few weeks, and I've been practicing and working on it and kind of stressed at moments because I'm like, oh no, I've got to change this and I've got to do that and I don't have time. And he turned to me and he said, you need to just stop being super mom then. Focus on your TEDx talk. Stop cooking us food. Stop doing the laundry. We'll order food, and he's like, just, you
Wow.
don't have to be super mom, and him telling me that, I was like, oh, you're right, and I'm like, all right, we're going to order food over the next few weeks. We're going to, and it's again that mirror, right? Like I didn't even realize that I'm trying to balance all the things and do all the things, and that's what was causing the stress. And so he saw it and he told me, let it go.
And Amy, that's another great point, because I think as a society, we encourage so much the super mom syndrome. Oh, you're rushing here and you're doing this and you're cooking and you're this and that and dropping kids off and great for you. And you're like, I'm exhausted. I haven't slept in 3 days. They're like, it's okay, girl, you got it. Like you are doing amazing. And we just keep reinforcing that. It's almost like we value the burnout and the stressed out. And it's like, stop, that's madness. That is not serving anybody. It's not serving us. Personally, it's also not serving our kids, very importantly, and it's not serving our families.
It is not. And they've done studies on children because we think, oh, we're doing all this for our children so they could be happier and more wonderful. And they've done studies on children measuring the urine in kids. And the urine, they could test the stress in the urine. And by looking at that, they could tell what the parents' stress levels and relationship is like. So it is not about all the things that you do for your kids. It's about, are you taking care of yourself? And are you modeling what you want for your kids one day? Because if they're going to, they see how you're showing up, and that's how they're going to show up.
Yeah. And I tell my female clients, because they struggle with that, because they feel the guilt if they're putting themselves first. And I'm like, well, would you like to teach your daughter to be a doormat and everybody takes advantage of her and pushes her left and right? And then they're like, no. And I'm like, well, we really teach our kids by demonstrating behavior and demonstrating relationship.
Yeah.
That's super key. Whew, Amy,
Yeah.
such good topics. All right, Amy, give us a piece of advice you want to leave us with.
Prioritize yourself. There is a reason that they say to put the oxygen mask on yourself on flights, right? Learn to say no, learn to ask for what you want. And it is not a selfish thing to do so. So prioritize yourself, like celebrate yourself. You're number one. You're the most important. And if you need to put signs everywhere to remind yourself, you're number one.
Do that. Yes. Serve from a cup full is how I say that.
Yeah.
Amy, what is your definition of rebellious?
My definition of rebellious is to do what you want, to be aligned to yourself, not listening to the shoulds, because it is parents, teachers, managers, society telling us who we should or shouldn't be, what we should or shouldn't do, how we should or shouldn't show up in the world. And rebelling to me is, well, I don't really care what any of you say. I'm going to do what I want to do because that's what's important to me.
Love it. Love it, Amy. All right, Amy, where can people find you if they want to reach you, they want to connect with you, find out more of the work that you do? Where can they connect? Social media, website?
My website is amyyipcoaching.com. So AMYYIP coaching.com. You can email me, amy@amyyipcoaching.com. And I am on LinkedIn. My handle is Amy C. Yip, and it's on LinkedIn. That's my primary platform.
I love it. Amy, fantastic energy. Thank you so much for all the
Thank
insight
you.
and wisdom. And I do think there was especially a lot of wealth for moms here. We can all relate as moms, I do think, to a lot of the topics that we covered. So thank you for your time. Grateful for saying yes and showing up for us here. Rebels, if you have any questions, please do ask them. Please share this with anybody who you think will benefit. Connect with Amy. And very importantly, do not forget to stay rebellious. We'll see you next time. Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Did you enjoy the conversation? Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Want to redefine your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind? Check out our website at rebellious-studio.com.